name's Laura. Welcome to my channel. So I want to do this quick video today just talking about sleep. And I think that, there are a lot of myths out there in a raw vegan diet on sleep. And I don't really think that sleep is actually a myth, a raw vegan myth. There are myths, and then there are things that, like I did a video last week talking about myths, and they're kind of partial myths, meaning that, some of it gets a little bit blown out of proportion. So let's just talk a little bit about sleep. Now, I know that when you're on a raw vegan diet, that there's a lot more enzymes, and because you're not eating food that's cooked, you're not killing the enzymes, and you do tend to have a lot more energy. However, every individual is different. And I know that when after the first year I was on a raw vegan diet, I was feeling like I could go on 5 or 6 hours sleep. Now, back in that time, I was really less stressed. I was working much less. And, I was doing a lot of cleanses, and I was at home, and I was in my kitchen and doing a lot of things that I was enjoying. So, I felt like I needed a lot less sleep. Whereas here lately, I feel like I'm getting closer to 6 or 7 hours. And a lot of times, a couple of days a week, I need 7. This is because I'm working 7 days a week. And I'm up every morning and have to be to work at 9, and, putting out a lot of energy. I get up every morning early and I exercise. So, I feel like my body needs more rest. I've also been under an extreme amount of stress in the past year, which the stress is starting to go down some, but as far as, just in general, like whether people need less sleep on a raw vegan diet, I think that that's probably somewhat true. I know that I used to sleep more like 10 hours and I was still tired. So, but what I do find is that because I have so much more energy on this diet, like I can do so much more. Used to be I needed I had to have 10 hours at least twice a week or something of sleep, maybe even 12 sometimes, and still felt tired, like when I got really burnt out. And, since I've been on raw foods, I definitely don't need even 8 hours, but I have noticed differences in my sleeping depending on what I'm doing in the day. And I know that I also can do a lot more since I've been on this lifestyle. I can get up 7 days a week and exercise an hour in the morning. I think that I used to be able to do it 4 or 5 times a week because of the fact that there were some days that I just was too tired, because I was always an exerciser even before I went on raw foods, but I couldn't do what I do. So I don't think I could work a job 7 days a week before I went on raw food. So I think that there is a lot more energy on the diet, and that you are not burning as much because of the digestion, and it takes a lot more to digest cooked foods and those things. So, and then during the day I eat a lot of fruit, so that's less digestion, so I have energy throughout the day. Even if I did sleep 5 hours, I can still function quite well, as where I used to be on 5 hours, I would be yawning and falling asleep, and I felt like I could just shut my eyes and fall asleep standing, literally, back in the time when I wasn't on raw foods. And I never get sleepy. I'll get tired but not sleepy, and it's a different kind of tired that I get on raw foods. It's a tired that I do so much more that I do get kind of burnt out, and sometimes I am more tired, but it's not the same kind of tired. It's not really a sleeping tired. It's or a sleepy tired. It's a very alert, but yet, my body is just exhausted kind of tired, which I prefer that as to just feeling purely, utterly exhausted like I used to feel all the time. Like I just didn't have enough energy to keep going, and I felt like I could fall asleep, like I was saying, fall asleep standing. So I think it's important for people to understand that just because you're on raw foods doesn't mean that you don't need sleep. And I think that people have to focus on sleep. And I think that people may even need to focus a little bit harder on sleep because of the fact that you can keep going and going and going. Your body just doesn't know when to stop, and you could overdo it a lot easier because when you're on cooked foods, you're made to go to sleep because you just can't go anymore. But on raw foods, you tend to be able to keep going and going and going, and sometimes you can easier overdo it. So that's my whole philosophy on the whether you need less or more sleep. So I definitely think that there is some truth to needing less sleep. However, there are some people that I have heard of that live on 4 hours sleep, and people have told me that they've, live on 2 or 3 hours sleep on a raw food diet. And I know for me that would be absolutely impossible. With all I get done in a day, I am absolutely exhausted. And I've always been a really good sleeper. Like, I don't really have trouble sleeping. I fall asleep right away, and I always wake up at the same time every day. And I think that that's really healthy. I think it's healthy to go to bed earlier. I try not to go past 11 o'clock. Some nights it gets later, but 10 o'clock is what I try to go for. And if I could do even earlier than that, sometimes I think it's even better for you. So, but you need rest and you need sleep. And I practice some meditation and prayer and things that, really help to rest my mind. There's one thing to sleep, but there's another thing to get just good relaxation and rest. And I think that that's really important. So that's all I have to say about sleep. And I hope that people understand that when they're tired, to listen to their bodies and get some sleep. And don't think that because you're on a raw food diet, oh, well, everybody says I don't need sleep, so I don't need a nap. If your body tells you you need a nap, take a snooze, have a good nap, and, listen to your body. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Bye.